Hey there, welcome back to the TeleWellness Hub podcast. I'm Marta Hamilton, your host, and if you've been feeling anxious, exhausted, or just plain overwhelmed by everything happening in the world right now, you're not alone. The news cycle has been relentless. From Trump, deportations, wildfires, the economy, wars, trade, relations with other countries, it's a lot. And for some of us, this isn't just something happening out there, it's deeply personal. I'm a first generation US citizen with Mexican citizenship, and the conversations in my home have shifted. And just the other night, my kids asked me at the dinner table, "Mom, what happens if you accidentally get detained?" And I thought, how do I even answer that? I was not prepared for this conversation. I didn't anticipate it to come, but my daughters, we live in Texas, and we live in an area where there are license plates from Mexico, and at their school and in our neighborhood and in our communities. So I realized this is an important conversation, and this question made me think about an opportunity to share with everyone through this podcast. I had been meaning to record, and I just didn't even know where to start because my plans that I had intended on in terms of our launch of our new platform and different topics just seemed out of touch with the reality that was going around at the moment and real issues that clients are bringing up in sessions. So today we're going to talk about how to protect your peace when the world feels like it's on fire. How do we stay informed without drowning in fear? How do we navigate tough conversations, especially with our kids? And what do we do when even the helpers, the providers, the advocates, the caregivers are feeling exhausted? And you'll have to forgive me for getting over some kind of virus, and my throat will be scratchy. But I think this is bigger than just self-care. It's about community care. It's about connection. It's about knowing where to turn for real support. So let's take a deep breath together and let's get into it. I think first, it's really important to talk about and address why everything feels heavy right now. Right now, it feels like everything is happening at once. For example, the legal chaos around Trump, deportation crackdowns with families being torn apart, climate disasters, economic instability, global conflicts, and even just conflicts in relationships for maybe having opposing views. And the truth is, our nervous systems weren't built to handle this much information, this much crisis at once. So our ancestors didn't wake up to a flood of bad news from every corner of the world every single day. The constant influx of trauma from social media, breaking news alerts, and endless analysis can leave us numb, anxious, and emotionally exhausted. For those of us who belong to some of these underrepresented communities, the disadvantaged communities, the oppressed communities, the stakes feel even higher. For me, I realize it's not just about stress, it's about safety, it's about identity, and it's about the future for families. If you've been feeling like your emotions are running high, please know it's not just you. It's a real valid response to what's happening. So, here are three shifts that I've recently had to make that have helped me, my family, and my community stay engaged without feeling like, okay, we're completely overwhelmed. I think the first and most important one to stay grounded without ignoring the reality is setting boundaries with the news. You do not need to be plugged in 24/7. A friendly reminder that I need to hear from myself. You do not need to be plugged in 24/7. The world will keep spinning if you don't check the news every hour. Perhaps a recommendation for this is to set a news check-in time. Maybe once in the morning, maybe once in the evening. Create limits, like time limits. Literally set a time limit. Put a timer, ask whatever device that you might talk to that sets timers for you. I don't even want to say her name because there's one in this room. But yes, I think set timers for yourself and set a news check-in time, because it's very easy for us to be engaged on our phones and really lost in the news. And in doing so, we're also not being present with our families, right? We're not present with our partners. Or if you live alone, there's still an opportunity to get on the phone and call somebody, see how they're doing, what do they need. Um, Spending time outside, spending time with nourishing yourself, with food, with getting things done in your home to tidy up. I think checking the news becomes an all never-ending available thing. When we had newspapers, you could start the newspaper and you'd finish the newspaper, right? There were designated news hours. So I think it's important to realize that you can have a time that you check the news and you do not need to be plugged in 24/7. A third tip with this is to curate your sources. Stick to credible journalism, and I know that's a subjective thing now, for many, but credible journalism, not reactionary fear-based takes. And remember that, unfortunately, the media works by getting attention, by getting clicks, by getting likes, by being shared, by getting comments in there. And it's technology is incredible. I mean, that's why I made TeleWellness Hub, to just be able to share mental health and wellness to make a bigger impact through health tech. But the reality is technology also without constraints can grow wild, right? And it's important to be aware of that and to curate your sources. Also be aware that social media, for example, while wonderful for connecting with others, I've connected with a lot of people through social media. Um, I think it's important to also remember that you are an algorithm. You are an algorithm to social media platforms. The information you are fed is algorithm based, not always based on what is clinically impactful or credible for you. So do think of that when checking social media as a source of information. The second thing in terms of how to stay grounded without ignoring reality is parenting through fear. I want to talk about something that's been really heavy on my heart. I think this has been the biggest challenge for me is how do we talk to our kids about all this? When my girls asked, "What happens if you get detained?" And they started crying, like they really did. The question surprised me. My parents immigrated to the United States legally. They became U.S. citizens. They were residents prior to that, but they were crying, saying, "What if someone detains?" Well, they didn't use the word detain. They said, "What if ICE gets here's Gigi and JoJo?" That's what they call my parents, speaking Spanish, and they take them. My heart absolutely shattered, and I knew they must have heard some children stating real fears, real concerns, because I heard that they also asked me, "What happens if I go to school and you're not there when when we come back home? What happens when it's pickup time and you don't pick us up because of ICE?" And I knew I had to find calm and be honest. And so I basically told them, the most important thing is that they are safe. They do not have to carry any fear on this. No matter what, we are not alone, and we have a plan, just like we do for anything. And the fact is that anytime we have needed to share a plan with them and we thought it was important for them, like a fire drill, any kind of safety plans, right? Even plans for something exciting, like here's what's going to happen, here's our itinerary for our vacation. Anytime we have needed to share a plan with them because we thought it was important, we have. And that we will share any plans if they ever need to. And I realized, and this that seemed to calm them. And I realized in that moment, my heart shattered, not just because this was going on in my kids' brains, but I knew what was likely happening for so many. And unfortunately, not all parents can say, well, I have my passports, I have a plan, I am a US citizen. It would be a mistake. I cannot be deported. I thought my heart shattered for those parents who are coming up with those plans right now, and for the children who are wondering what the plan is, and for those that we know that are having to have these tough discussions. So if you're parenting through this moment, you are not alone either. I think it's important to be open and honest, because I do believe this information is being talked about at school. And I think it's always best as a parent to be able to talk to them in an informed manner, but you don't have to pass your anxiety on to them. But I think offering reassurance that they're safe and they are loved, and being okay with, if your children ask hard questions, it's okay to say, I'm not sure. I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. And that brings me to my third tip on this, is taking care of your nervous system. I mentioned in the beginning of this segment, I've been taking a break from recording, focusing on the launch of our new platform and just preparing a lot of tech side of things, but also I needed time to gather my thoughts. And I think in doing so, I realized, that I was feeling a little stressed. So the stress that we're feeling, it's in our bodies. You can now, my immune system was clearly low. I caught some kind of virus, but it's stress is typically in our bodies. And there are three quick tools that we know from research that help: movement, breath work, joy, and connection. So movement, walk, stretch, get out of your head and into your body. Breath work, a classic peer-reviewed method, the 478 method. Inhale for 4, hold for 7 counts, and exhale for 8. That's a really powerful tool. And you'd be surprised how often we go throughout our day with really shallow breaths. So even if you're listening right now and you can just purposefully and intentionally take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out, and even inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, you'd be doing your nervous system a huge favor. You'd be taking care of it. And joy and connection. It's important to balance having these with things that make you feel human: laughter, music, time with loved ones. I also think it's important to think about how getting help looks different for everyone. Okay, we talked about how to stay grounded without ignoring reality, why everything feels heavy right now. And I think we also need to talk about getting help. It doesn't have to mean therapy. Although that's a great option, there are many ways to get support right now. And so here are some ways that you can care for yourself that don't require um, a huge commitment. If you're like, what, I can't even wrap my head around getting therapy right now because of my financial restraints, because of my time restraints, because of my just the mental load of what's going on. I'm in survival mode. So something you can do, you can sign up for newsletters from organizations that provide resources and education. I will be sharing some in the show notes. Join a virtual workshop to connect with others, learn new tools, find a support group. Sometimes just knowing that others understand is healing in and of itself. Follow community leaders and advocates who are actively working towards solutions, and take a break when needed. Staying informed is important, but so is protecting your well-being. Some resources that I'll share, that I want to share a few organizations that are actively supporting underrepresented communities right now. Raices for Immigration Legal Aid. The National Alliance of Mental Illness, also known as NAMI, has an amazing collection of mental health resources, including workshops. They have local chapters, informative resources, education. There's a lot. United We Dream for undocumented youth and advocacy. Mutual aid networks in your city. Local help can be the most impactful. And if you have other specific organizations in mind, please share with me. I want to add them. The more we can add, the better. I think that brings me to this, supporting the helpers, because we need it too. This is, I want to acknowledge something very important and near and dear to me. Many of the people who normally offer support are struggling right now too. Mental health providers, advocates, caregivers, social workers, we're all carrying so much. And honestly, it started during COVID. I would say the weight of helping others while also processing our own fears is demanding. And that's why I'm working on something special through TeleWellness Hub. I really am working on a community designed for us to support and empower providers, advocates, and clients without the burnout, and a place where we can share resources, process emotions, and take care of each other. Because really, healing doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community. So if this resonates with you, stay tuned. We're building something powerful. We're building something amazing, affordable, free for many. I I'm in the process of building. So that's sort of my opportunity to be called to action in right now, where I've been dedicating my time, my attention is really on building this, so that one day I can do this segment and say, if you're looking for support, there is something for you, whether a session, a workshop, a download, a YouTube video on TeleWellness Hub. That's my goal. But in the meantime, I think it's important, if this episode spoke to you, I'd like to invite you to take one small step today. Set a news boundary. Have a real conversation with someone you trust and you love and could share a laugh with. Look into one of the resources I mentioned. And if you need more support, know that you're not alone. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend. Let's spread calm and community in the chaos. Take a look in the show notes for some resources. Please message me. Feel free to message me. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at TeleWellness Hub. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Marta Hamilton. Truly, honestly, I invite you, please. I check messages. Send me a resource. Send me a thought of how you've been feeling, how I can best support you, how I can build TeleWellness up, whether you're a client or provider, because I've been a client before too. So until next time, take care.